Next on KPBS Evening Edition, breaking news, a wildfire grows in the North County. This as dangerous fire conditions continue, from a red flag warning today to concern over what's to come in the next few days. Is the county, are you prepared? Plus, an investigation is underway into how high gas prices, details on the blame game about why you're paying more at the pump. And a tweet by President Trump is getting backlash from both sides of the aisle. What he said this time, many say, went way over the line. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, October 22nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. We begin with breaking news, a brush fire in the North County. It's burning in the eastern reaches of Camp Pendleton in the area of U.S. Naval Weapons Station Fallbrook, according to North County Fire. No structures threatened at this time. And it is the concern over wildfires that has local officials keeping the heat on when it comes to warning residents about the dangerous conditions. With a red flag warning in effect and hotter days ahead, they're urging the public to take precautions due to the Santa Ana-like conditions. Alex Tardy works for the National Weather Service in San Diego. He says Santa Ana winds can make wildfires uncontrollable.
You get embers and sparks and flames that are moving away from the fire into new fuel, into new brush, and you're basically chasing something. You're chasing a moving target, and it's not only dangerous, sometimes it's impossible to control. And Tardy says it is hot. There will be 50 to 60 mile-an-hour winds, and there is plenty of dry fuel in the mountains. We have all those ingredients in place. It's not unusual for October. It's just a matter of when it occurs and how severe it is. In this particular case, for Thursday, Friday, it looks like a moderate type of event. So not the worst we've seen, but certainly fits right in the middle and presents itself as critical fire danger.
Both of the county's largest firestorms, the Cedar Fire in 2003 and the Witch Fire in 2007, began during Santa Ana events at the end of October. San Diego County should be on high alert for the rest of the week because it is going to be very hot and very dry. Meteorologist Regina Miller explains the ongoing wildfire risks.
Well, we have had excessive heat advisories in effect across the area for today with gusty, hot, dry, northeasterly wind, offshore flow, and that is weakening for Wednesday. But we're still going to see the high fire danger risk coming back in Wednesday night through Friday, where we're looking at wind gusts 40 to 60 miles per hour in the canyons and passes. And we also have especially low relative humidity. So this is going to create a widespread danger, power outages likely here. There's probably going to be some of those roving power outages as a result. I'll talk about it in the complete forecast coming up.
Is there more than meets the eye when it comes to the price of gas? Governor Gavin Newsom thinks so and has called for an investigation into the skyrocketing prices. But former City Councilman Carl DeMaio says not so fast. With gas prices in the state of California significantly higher than in other states, Governor Newsom wants the state attorney general, Javier Becerra, to launch an investigation as to why. In a letter to Becerra, Newsom said the mystery surcharge adds up, especially for cost-conscious families. If oil companies are engaging in false advertising or price fixing, then legal action should be taken to protect the public. Becerra has accepted the invitation to investigate. The governor suspects the reason gas prices in the state are as much as $1 per gallon higher than other states is because of possible price fixing. Newsom's request for an investigation followed the release of a 10-page report by the California Energy Commission looking into the cost of gas. The report could also not account for the cost difference of name-brand retailers like Chevron and Shell. Local politician Carl DeMaio today held a news conference blaming the high gas prices on the governor's policies.
Look, I don't like the oil companies, but I suspect that the reason is very clear. We have higher gas prices in California because of the state taxes, mandates, and fees from Gavin Newsom and his buddies in the legislature.
Newsom is getting the support from those who applaud his calling for an investigation. They say ratcheting up pressure is good to keep oil companies in line, even if no illegal acts are discovered. And it should be noted Carl DeMaio, a Republican, is running for the 50th District congressional seat and is chairman of Reform California, which looks into tax increases statewide. President Trump is lashing out, comparing the impeachment inquiry against him to a lynching. While condemnation from Democrats was swift, some Republicans are actually backing up the president's claim. CNN's Caitlin Collins reports.
President Trump has derided Democrats' impeachment probe as a witch hunt and a fraud. But today he drew swift condemnation after he went even further and likened it to a lynching. Trump tweeting that the impeachment inquiry is without due process or fairness or any legal rights, as he urged Republicans to remember this in the future. But critics said he should remember the past. Democrats immediately rebuked the president for evoking the racist history of barbaric white mob murders of black people.
He knew exactly what he was saying. He knew exactly how it would come across. Why would you use the term lynching? Why would you say that?
Members of Trump's own party distanced themselves from his words, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Given the history in our country, I would not compare this to a lynching. That was an unfortunate choice of words.
Tim Scott, the only African-American Republican senator, had this to say.
Well, there's no question that the impeachment process is the closest thing of a political death row trial. So I get his absolute rejection of the process. I wouldn't use the word lynching.
The president did find a vocal defender in Lindsey Graham, the other senator from South Carolina who endorsed his choice of words.
So yeah, this is a lynching in every sense. This is un-American.
At the White House, aides insisted Trump wasn't comparing himself to one of the darkest moments in American history.
He is receiving zero due process from Democrats on the Hill. That's what he's talking about. Are we going to talk about something else, or are we going to continue with the tweet? Ask me about Syria, please.
The president's tweet coming as pressure on the White House over the probe is intensifying.
Hogan, is this intended as a distraction?
A steady stream of current and former officials have continued to testify under oath on Capitol Hill, despite a White House vow not to cooperate. Today, a new CNN poll revealed that 50% of Americans now support impeaching and removing the president from office, though his approval rating remained steady at 41%.
And that was Caitlin Collins reporting. Facebook is taking steps to stop fake news and prevent election interference in 2020. Both Facebook and Instagram will start using a third-party fact checker and will prominently label content considered to be false, partly false, or misleading. The company says it will also heavily filter or restrict content from accounts that repeatedly post misinformation. Instagram will introduce a new pop-up when people try to share posts that include content debunked by third-party fact checkers. Americans in most states will see their health insurance premiums drop next year if they buy it on an Obamacare exchange. Affordable Care Act premiums are dropping an average of 4% in 38 states, and 20 more insurers are joining the program. It marks the second year of lower rates, and 6 states are seeing double-digit declines. Premiums rose sharply for several years before they started correcting downward last year. But deductibles are continuing to rise, and 3 states are seeing double-digit premium increases. 20 confirmed cases of a rare polio-like virus have been discovered in the U.S. so far this year. New leads are pointing toward a common, typically harmless virus as the cause. Meredith Wood has more in today's Health Minute.
Researchers have new hope in pinpointing what is behind the scary polio-like illness that impacts children. Acute flaccid myelitis, or AFM, usually occurs around this time of year and mainly affects children. According to a study published in the journal Natural Medicine, a virus could be the culprit, specifically enterovirus strains D68 and A71. Using a virus hunting tool, scientists examined the spinal fluid of patients for an immune response to thousands of viruses. Of the 42 patients with AFM that were tested, 70% had antibodies from those 2 strains of the enterovirus. What's still unclear, however, is why a virus that causes 10 to 15 million infections a year in the U.S. only causes paralysis in less than 1% of infected children. Early symptoms of enteroviruses mirror those of a common cold: cough, congestion, fever. before becoming more concerning.
What is alarming and what very frightening is that they suddenly develop weakness. Typically it's in an arm or a leg, but it sort of comes out of the blue.
For some children, that weakness can turn into paralysis as the virus causes inflammation in the spinal cord. That paralysis or weakness can be reversed over time in some cases. For today's Health Minute, I'm Meredith Wood.
And in other health news, CVS is testing drone deliveries for medications. The pharmacy chain is partnering with UPS, which recently received approval from the Federal Aviation Administration to make limited drone deliveries. The drones will be automated, flying on pre-planned routes in as quickly as 5 or 10 minutes. They will carry packages up to 5 pounds and leave them in the front or backyard. A human will supervise and take over flight if needed for safety's sake. CVS and UPS haven't said when or where deliveries will begin. This week in the skies over San Diego, the military will test a new system to hunt down drones. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh explains the process.
A pair of drones took off from Memorial Park in Logan Heights Tuesday morning. Their launch kicked off the first test in an urban area of a new system designed to track the kind of small commercial drones that you can find at Fry's or Best Buy. Drones which are extremely tough to track inside cities, even with cameras. The Defense Advanced Research Project, or DARPA, launched Aerial Dragnet in 2016. The goal is to create a system that is cheap and easy to deploy with troops. Caitlin McCauley is with the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation, which is coordinating with DARPA this week. She sees the potential commercial application.
Because drones are becoming ever increasingly popular, we really do have to think about them coming into our airspace as a fairly regular occurrence. And that being the case, having proving ground here in San Diego actually offers us an advantage.
Again, the system is only experimental. This week, teams in San Diego, at Naval Base San Diego, and in National City will use drones and an aerostat balloon to try to locate and track groups of drones flying near buildings. The test goes through Friday. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Full House actress Lori Loughlin, along with 10 other parents, including a local mother, were indicted today on new federal charges as prosecutors pressure them to admit guilt in a college admissions bribery scheme. The new charges come from a grand jury in Massachusetts, and they're in addition to the conspiracy charges the parents are already facing. The grand jury alleges that the 11 parents conspired to commit federal program bribery. That charge carries a penalty up to 10 years in prison. Former KFMB owner and La Jolla resident Elizabeth Kimmel will be among those awaiting a new arraignment date on the additional charges. The largest bank in the nation wants to hire more people who have criminal backgrounds. JP Morgan's CEO made the announcement in a statement today. He says it's a way to level the playing field and broaden its pool of potential employees. JP Morgan has now banned the box that asks prospective employees whether they have a criminal record. And the firm is already hiring some people with a conviction on their record for entry-level jobs like transaction processing and account servicing. But the company says it's not lowering its hiring standards. It's a problem that's plagued boaters for thousands of years. Marine organisms living on the bottom of boats. As KPBS SciTech reporter Shalina Chatlani explains, local researchers are close to a solution.
At a pier in Mission Bay, diver Brian Hall and his colleagues zip into their wetsuits. They've equipped themselves with sponges, and in the tight space between a boat and the dock, they plunge into the water. The bottom of this boat suffers from something known as biofouling. The hull is caked with heavy, crusty white tube worms, and these two divers have been hired to scrub them away. Brian Hall is the owner of a boat hull cleaning business in Mission Bay called Dockside Divers. Now, out of the water, he says biofouling can become difficult to manage.
We'll end up with oysters and clams and mussels that grow on these boats. It starts with a slime or small algae, and then progresses to the harder, more complex growth.
Hall says the average boat owner can spend around $1,500 a year just to get rid of these invasive and heavy marine species. And if the boat owners do nothing, the marine gunk still costs them money because it decreases fuel performance.
The new boater is often shocked. We get people that purchase new boats or they purchase a boat for the first time, and then 3 or 4 months later, then we get an emergency call, and that's when they go, I didn't realize I was supposed to be doing this often, and they've got a forest down there, and they tried to go to Catalina, or run down to Ensenada for the weekend and realize they were going half the speed they could be.
Biofouling isn't new. Since ancient times, boat owners have used paints with toxic materials like tin to prevent marine life from building up. Some of these paints have even been banned because they hurt marine life. The need for solutions has caught the attention of not only boaters, but also scientists.
These are the babies of the bigger tube worms.
In his lab on the San Diego State University campus, marine microbiologist Nicholas Shikuma points to a beaker filled with water.
And those are all little baby tube worm larvae that are looking for a nice boat hull to stick to.
He's looking at how these tube worms interact with bacteria.
It turns out that lots of these marine organisms decide where to stick to the bottoms of ships based on whether there's a friendly bacteria on the bottom.
For years, Shikuma has been investigating why this bacteria attracts marine gunk, and he's figured out one reason.
What we discovered was that the bacteria actually produce this syringe structure that turns out injects a stimulatory protein into the tube worm baby and then causes it to stick to the bottom of the ship.
Picture a stinger on a bumblebee. The insects use stingers to repel enemies, and so do bacteria on the bottom of boats. But the problem is tube worms ended up liking it, so they stick around to get more. Shikuma says in the future, these bacteria could be genetically modified to be less attractive to tube worms. He says that's still theoretical right now, but he's not the only scientist coming up with ideas. In fact, the U.S. Navy has been funding labs across the country to address this issue, including Shikuma's. Linda Chrissy is with the Office of Naval Research.
There are now coatings available that have less toxin in them, which is a positive for the environment. And we believe as we continue to do the research, that will only get better.
Chrissy says biofouling costs the Navy around $200 million a year in lost fuel and cleaning. The Navy uses paints that are less toxic than before, but these paints still have some heavy metals like copper, and it doesn't last long.
That's why studying their behavior and the biology is important. If we can recognize what types of features of a surface make that an unappealing surface, we're halfway there in terms of having a coating that is both friendly to the environment as well as helping the Navy solve its problems.
The research program has been going on for a while, and it will continue. But with discoveries like those from Shikuma, Chrissy believes in the next decade, the Navy will come closer to developing an effective commercial product, one that's based on nature.
The fact that an organism like the tube worm would come to rely on a bacterium to develop, I think is pretty cool and pretty interesting. And
back at the pier, boat cleaner Brian Hall isn't worried that the research will put him out of business. That's because boats require care in a lot of different ways.
Anything that helps prevent biofouling is a good thing, ultimately.
If anything, he says finding a solution for a centuries-old problem may encourage more people to get a boat. And he says it means less toxic chemicals for the marine environment. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
Severe weather continues across the U.S. today as millions of Americans remain under wind warnings and advisories. Strong storms bring rain to the Midwest and Northeast, and nearly 23 million people are under fire weather watches right here in California. Nadia Romero reports.
A chopper dousing water over wildfires in California is a normal yet menacing sign of what's to come. A fire scorched 40 acres in Pacific Palisades already this week. 40 homes still threatened in San Bernardino, with windy conditions continuing Tuesday.
The wind shifts and it can start a whole nother fire.
Now it's up to goats to chomp down on the fuel for flames. With Pacific Gas and Electric ready to shut off power to some 209,000 customers this week. Too hot and too dry in California, the opposite of the Midwest. Severe weather brought rain and wind, knocking down trees and power lines in Missouri. The Midwest and Northeast bracing for more of the same in the coming days. In Oklahoma, a family mourns the death of a woman killed in her mobile home during a storm this week.
It's a bad weather, lots of bad wind.
I thought I was going to have a couple trees on me, to tell you the truth.
Just next door, Texans continue cleaning up after an EF3 tornado touched down, wreaking havoc.
That's a monster.
Go in the tornado!
But in the midst of chaos,
I was just so focused on the pain from the contractions.
There's also opportunity.
You have to come in the laundry room. There's a tornado.
A new life brings a silver lining in the darkness of the storms. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero reporting.
And as Nadia mentioned, we're facing dangerous wildfire weather conditions across Southern California, and it will be continuing throughout the week. Meteorologist Regina Miller has our forecast.
Well, gusty, hot, northeasterly offshore winds for today will diminish a bit during the day tomorrow, but then pick back up again Wednesday night through Friday. And because of that, we have a fire watch in effect for Wednesday night through Friday evening, especially for the mountains, valleys, and inland Orange County. 25 to 35 mile per hour winds with gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour in the canyons and passes. Exceptionally low humidity. So here's our futurecast winds. So you see at noon on Wednesday. Not quite as bad, but watch how the intensity picks up by the time we get to Wednesday night. This is 11 p.m. Watch the color chart here where the winds start to really increase out, even heading closer to the coast here, and that's through Thursday. So tonight's weather, our temperature drops to 51 in Oceanside, 61 in San Diego, 61 in Borrego Springs. Tomorrow, sunshine, still very warm, not as hot though. Chula Vista's at 80 degrees in San Diego, so still a very warm day, 83 in Oceanside. And the coast, we're going to see a high temperature of 90 degrees with sunny, windy, dry conditions and warm. A 90-degree high. Friday, we're at 86, sunny and very warm. On Wednesday, inland areas, sunny and very warm by Wednesday night and Thursday, winds picking up, and we have heat around a temperature of 93 on Thursday. Sunny and very windy in the mountains, a high temperature of 68 degrees on Thursday with those gusty winds Wednesday night and Thursday. Plenty of sunshine on Friday. In the desert areas, 96, very hot on Wednesday, our temperature 91 degrees on Thursday. We're at 87 on Friday. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
Bullying is a problem in every high school, but now 2 seniors in North Carolina are offering a creative and kind solution. Cindy Farmer explains.
The cafeteria at Reedsville High School is a busy place during lunch. For DeMontez Canada and Tyvon Smoot, though, this is the place that changed their senior year, making them feel
like a hero.
Blessed.
Yeah.
It started with a text about a freshman student whose sister had tweeted about him feeling bad because he'd been picked on and was eating lunch alone. So the 2 upperclassmen decided to turn a negative into a positive.
We both decided to meet him the next day and catch him on guard and go have lunch with him because he said he didn't have any friends. So when we did that, it was like he said we was heroes, and he was excited because he didn't have nobody to eat lunch with, so we ate lunch with him on that same exact day.
But then word got out about their act of kindness.
I was not expecting that at all. I really wasn't.
It's like nobody was supposed to know but me, him, and probably the principals.
And the calls for interviews came.
I don't know how it happened.
It just started coming out of nowhere.
It just started coming.
People just hitting us with, oh, you're going to this school, or you're on this news channel.
It was wild. It was kind of cool, though.
The Kelly Clarkson Show, Access Hollywood, network news programs, all wanting to share their good deed. And social media took notice as well, with hundreds of thousands of people reading and sharing their story.
That's a lot of people.
And not just in our state.
Because I remember a person from the Caribbean texting me. And they let me know how far I got out.
Yeah. Someone from the UK hit me up, too, on Facebook about it.
So at the request of their principal, the teens decided to tell other younger students that bullying is not okay. At one school, they noticed a student who looked distraught.
For some reason, I could just sense from behind that I knew something was wrong. So we called him over, and he was talking to us about all his issues.
True to their hearts, they took action, going on a shopping spree with Karen Heiler, the spokesperson for Rockingham County Schools, to buy that student some things he needed.
He loved it when we brought it back to him the next day.
We bought him a lot of stuff.
He said that it was Christmas part 2 to him.
2 times better.
Yeah, 2 times better. He said Christmas in October.
Their kind ways are also having an impact in their own school.
Just today, I had a group of female students who saw another student at lunch. They decided to be her lunch buddy. Then I had another group of female students. I had a student here at the school that didn't have clothes, and the kids already started collecting things for this other student. So we see now that it's really going school-wide.
And that's just fine with DeMontez and Tyvon.
I feel like we inspired other people to do what we do.
Yeah, that's how I feel like what we did. I feel like we sent a message out on how being friendly can help somebody's life.
And once again, that was Cindy Farmer reporting. Well, are you feeling blue? How about a pick-me-up from the Blue Man Group? Over 35 million people have experienced this surprising and exciting show that is Blue Man Group. And now they have a new tour called Speechless, coming to the San Diego Civic. We won't give it away, but the show features new and original acts, some compositions, and audience participation. You can catch the Blue Man Group at the San Diego Civic, November 8th through the 10th. For more information, you just go to BroadwaySD.com. And that's going to do it for us right now. You can find tonight's stories on our website. That's kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.